Hello, Dr. Dan.
That'd be great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I finally have to meet you. I finally get to meet you. It's a pleasure, and I can't even describe it. It's really awesome.
Thank you. I'm honored, and I got to tell you, I'm grateful to meet you too. When I got the information for the interview from my publicist, she said, "Can you do this?" And I was like, "No, I'm too busy." And she said, "Go check out the link." And I checked out the link and saw what you were up to, and I'm like, "Yes, I will do whatever I have to make the time." I leave tomorrow for 6 weeks on facilitating classes, but for me, it's an honor to contribute to what you're doing, because what you're doing is what I think is so necessary in our world. We have a world where people don't realize they have different choices. They don't know how to change the things that aren't working. And they see so many other people around them suffering. It's like we can offer them a different possibility.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. I really appreciate it. But a lot of people are watching us right now. Some of them know you already. Some of them went through your work, and some others are curious. So is there a way you can explain them? You can explain us with your own words how you define yourself, how you see yourself?
Well, I do my best not to define myself, actually. Because what I find is every time I define myself, I'm usually wrong anyway, and it stops what's possible. But for me, it's like, I remember as a little kid growing up and looking around and going, why can't there be more possibilities? I mean, even as a little kid, my family was like, "What are you talking about? You're always, you're always dreaming." And I'm like, "I know, but I'm always looking for more." And I got to a place 15 years ago where I was literally going to kill myself because I was so depressed that the changes that I wanted to make in my life weren't happening. And I was waking up unhappy, and I got to a place where I went, I've had enough. Either my life changes or I'm out of here. And I came across something called Access Consciousness. And the tagline for Access Consciousness is, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And I looked at that, and my life was pain, suffering, and gory at the time. And I thought, ease, joy, and glory, what are you talking about? And I went and I had a session. And within an hour and 15 minutes, it changed my whole point of view about the way the world could be. And I never went back to that dark place. And because I had that in an hour and 15 minutes, I went, you know what? Change is possible. We can change anything. And I started looking for the tools to create change, and I started doing this Access Consciousness stuff. And within a few short weeks, I started getting happy in a way I hadn't been since I was a kid. And I started feeling like I was grateful to be alive, and I would wake up and I would wake up with a smile on my face for the first time in years. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. And I would use these tools, and at the time I was a chiropractor. I guess I'm not doing a very good job of defining myself, but let me just put it this way. It is basically, I'm a facilitator and co-creator of something called Access Consciousness. And it's basically tools, techniques, and information, ways of changing anything in your life you want to change. And ways of inviting possibilities into your life so that you can start to wake up with a smile on your face too, is basically how it works.
Yes, wow. But that's incredible. You went from depressions, basically being suicidal, to smiling. After an hour session?
An hour and 15 minutes, it changed. It just, the deep darkness was gone. And then what happened was, the person that did this session with me, she gave me a tool to use. We got together every week and did a session. And she gave me a tool to use for the next week until I saw her again. And every time it felt like that heaviness was coming back in, I would use one of these tools and it would go away. And I would have the space again and the happiness. And I thought, wow, it was kind of like I always knew this is the way the world should be, but it wasn't showing up. So when I got this and the world started being the way I knew it could be, I was like, see, I knew it. And it sort of gave me this hope to carry on. And within 3 weeks of using these tools, I was so much happier. And then within 3 months, I was happy to a level that I had never been in my life before, consistently. I mean, I'd had it for maybe an hour or two or a day. You know how that is when you have this level of happiness, like, yes, awesome. And then by the end of the day, or when you wake up tomorrow morning, it seems like it's gone. Well, what this has done is it's actually created a continuously greater level of it.
But Dr. Dain, so we can ask, what kind of tool was it? Because I mean, it seems
I
amazing.
know, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's one thing. It's called the Access Consciousness bars, which it's basically these 32 points in the head that when you hold them, it basically dissipates all of the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and judgments that you're carrying around. It's kind of like upgrading your operating system, you know, getting a new hard drive, getting a new monitor, getting a new CPU all at the same time. And so that you walk around without all this crap in your head. And it's interesting because we just had a neuroscientist study this. And he found he studied it, and he said, I have been doing studies like this for 15 years. I have never seen anything that does anything like this, especially in this amount of time. He said, but I've never seen anything that does this over months at a time. He said, and I studied one person after one session of Access Consciousness bars. And he said, gave all kinds of stuff that I don't understand as far as brainwaves and their relevance. But one of the things he talked about was something called gamma coherence. When you're in gamma coherence, you feel a sense of gratitude, you feel connected with the universe, and you feel like there is no judgment in your world. There's just a connection where you feel like everything is possible. And he said this creates more gamma coherence than anything he's ever seen in an hour. So having the scientific backup of it is something I've known for 15 years, that we have this capacity by who we are to contribute to change for people, to make their world a better place. I mean, how many times have you had a bad day and somebody knew it and they gave you a hug and it changed? You know, it's like we have this healing touch. We are this. And what I'd like people to know is the tools are available. And like you said, what are the tools? So the bars was one of them. Another one that really helped me a lot is one of the awarenesses that we have is that 98% of your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions don't belong to you. You're picking all of this stuff up all the time from everybody around you and thinking it's yours. And so if you'll ask, who does this belong to? When you have a thought, a feeling, an emotion, when you have a judgment, when you are happy and then all of a sudden you're not, if you go, who does that belong to? If it lightens up, if that sort of contraction lightens up at all, it's not yours. You just return it to sender, whoever it came from. Because I had the experience, I was driving down the road when I first got this tool, and I used to be driving to work to my chiropractic office, living in Santa Barbara, which is this wonderful paradise in Southern California. I mean, just gorgeous. And I used to think to myself, am I the only one who's unhappy here? You know, I'm like, why am I the only unhappy one? And so I had gotten this tool, who does this belong to? And I was driving to work and I had that same feeling of unhappiness that had plagued me for years, ever since I moved there. And I went, who does that belong to? And all of a sudden it was gone. And I was back to the happy me, and I went, are you kidding me? This has been something that I've been picking up and perceiving my whole life and not recognizing that it wasn't mine. And so when I say this to people, a lot of them look at me kind of funny and go, but that can't actually work. I'm like, well, number one, I'm living proof. But thousands of people around the world who've used this actually find that it works. And what happens is if we don't have to carry around the 98% of stuff that isn't ours, then we only have to deal with the 2% that is, which is a totally different story rather than trying to function from trying to change everything that seems like it's going on. If you can recognize, oh, I'm picking up this from somebody, I'm picking up this from somebody, I'm picking up this, I can let that all go. Now what's really mine? And you start to get a sense of what is actually yours.
Oh, that's amazing. And while you are explaining, I actually tried the tool on myself.
Cool.
I felt different in the instant.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were explaining, I was asking, I was wondering what would be basically the next question. But when I asked myself the question, what does this belong to? I felt directly a little bit more relaxed, more at ease. Oh, okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is.
And that's the thing about this, you know, is you try it and you find it works. It's like, oh, wow, it seems so simple, but it actually does work.
But actually, those 99%, I mean, where does it come from?
Everyone around us, because quite frankly, I don't know where it comes from. I just know there's probably one person somewhere in China thinking, and everybody else is picking it up. You know what I mean? It's like,
I don't like the butterfly effect.
yeah,
Uh,
yes,
Someone moves right here and it affects someone else. Maybe they don't exactly understand where it's coming from, and then they act, they affect someone else. Wow.
Yes.
So, in other words, the feeling of interconnection. People are interconnected. I mean, whenever you have a reaction or you have a certain type of thought, if it really belongs to you, it might affect someone else. Someone else might pick it up.
yeah, and then they act on it, and then they act on it, and they act on it. And I literally, this and the bars that I spoke about I literally cured myself of the depression and the suicidal thoughts using the bars and who does this belong to. And there's some other really simple tools. For me, it's all about the tools, because if you, that thing of, if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a moment, but if you teach them to fish, that's theirs for the rest of their life. So what I realize is if I can give people tools that they can use, they don't even have to remember my name. They can be out there changing things in the moment in their lives, and it makes their life better. If it makes their life better, it makes the planet better. And if we make the planet better, then we might actually have a chance of creating something different here. And so one of the tools that you can use is realize that a question always empowers, and an answer always disempowers. So when you come up with an answer, when you come up with a conclusion about something, that's always creating less than if you'd stay in the question about it. So when something comes up, a great question you can ask is, how does it get any better than this? And you can ask it when something good happens or when something bad happens. When something bad happens and you say, how does it get any better than this? It actually allows you to see how it could get better. Most of us don't ask. We go, oh man, this sucks. And then we're left with, it sucks. Because that's the answer. That's your conclusion. When you decide it sucks, it's exactly what it is. That's exactly what you get. And when you ask, how does it get any better than this when something good happens, all of a sudden it gets even better than that. Where most of us stop ourselves is we try to create something, let's say, or try to invite something into our life. And it shows up and we go, oh, cool, yeah, I got it. Well, that's cool. Yes, you did get it. But what if you asked, how does it get any better than this? Could you have even more? Could something even greater show up if you were willing to open the door for that? And so that's one of the things that you start to recognize is you can always have greater in your life. All it takes is asking a question to allow that to show up. So when you do, how does it get any better than this? That's what the universe shows you. There's so many times where somebody will get something or have something show up and they go, well, it doesn't get any better than that. Guess what? You're right. You know, some wise man once said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Same thing. If you think it can get better, it can. If you think it won't, it can't.
Oh, then you're blowing my mind right now. So instead of just being in the yes or in the no, we should. I mean, it was like a two level, the other yes and the other no. And actually, maybe the person in the yes is a little bit higher than the person in the no. But above that, the other person was asking himself the question.
Yeah.
Because he's open to different possibilities.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And Dr. Dan, actually, you have a lot of experience. Basically, we have experience just from what you share with us already. We can feel it, we can understand it. And we'd like to ask a question about success. Nowadays, people are talking about success all over the place. And I know that you have your perspective is very original. After going through your materials, after meeting you and listening to what you're sharing with us, how do you see success? What's your definition of success?
Well, what I would say is success for me is when I can wake up and look at myself in the mirror every day and be grateful for the person that's there. And another aspect of that is the awareness, the willingness and the ability to have gratitude for your life as it is and what you're creating in your life, and the awareness that you can change any part of it to something greater. So for me, it really is about the gratitude for being alive. And there's so many aspects of that. It's like the interaction you can have with other people, that you can be grateful for the people in your life. And for me, if you can be grateful for the good, the bad, and the ugly when it shows up, that's success. Because now you're not resisting any aspect of life and living, and now you can live fully and truly jump in and live without reservation, because you no longer have to go, oh, this is bad, so I need to avoid it. You don't have to avoid anything anymore in your life. Now you can embrace the entire world as it is. And you start to become something that is different. You start to become a space in when you walk around, people sense something different about you. You know, it's like when you walked in today, I was like, ah. You know, I feel like my brother, you know?
Yes.
Because there's a space in your world, there's a kindness, there's a generosity in your world, and a desire to invite people to more. Those also, for me, are elements of success. There's the really simple answer, and then there's all the aspects of what go into that. But for me, it truly is living with a level of gratitude, a level of kindness, a level of generosity of spirit, and a level of contribution to the world and the people in it that actually allows something greater to show up.
Just when you talked about gratitude, is it really essential? Because, I mean, when you see, for example, in different countries, if you go for, if I can go back, let's say in Africa or in Europe, because I travel also in Europe, you see a lot of people complaining about almost everything.
Yes.
There are traffic, they start complaining.
Yes.
And, I mean, what idea or what advice can you share with those people? Because I remember a few years back, I was also complaining about a lot of things, but it's some ideas that touch me, that made me look at things a little bit differently.
Right.
So those people, what idea can you share with them?
Well, here's the thing: is we learn this. You know, we learn to complain. We entrain to the vibration of other people. We entrain to the people around us. You know, so when our parents complain, we learn to complain because we think that's just the way it is. And what I would get them, and the other thing I would say is there are a lot of people that are doing the complaining that don't want to change it. It actually makes them happy to complain. So, which is kind of weird because you're like, wait a minute, how can you be happy complaining? But if you try to take it away from them, they will be very upset and very sad. So you recognize that there are a lot of people. So the information, two things. One, if you're somebody who looks at that complaining from the outside and goes, why do you have to do that? It can be better than this. Well, you want to recognize that you're different and recognize that their complaining makes them happy, and don't bother trying to change it unless somebody wants it to change. And if they do, they'll ask you a question like, you know what, I notice I'm complaining all the time and I'm really unhappy. Can you help? And then you go, yeah, here's a question you can ask. Next time you feel like you want to complain, number one, ask who does this belong to? Because is it actually yours? And if it lightens up, it's not yours, just return it. And then ask, how does it get any better than this? And then they'll go, okay, so that will probably right there, those two things will lighten something up. But then you say, hey, ask this question. What else is possible? And what would it take to change this?
That's some fantastic questions. I don't know where it's taking my mind to, but that's some fantastic question. And wow.
But that's the beauty of it is, like you said, when I say it, you notice you go, it kind of does this and you kind of space out or you connect to something different. And that's really what these questions are about. And they're questions that I ask every day with most of the situations that come up. I've been asking them so long now that's just sort of the way I live. But it's exactly that, because what they do is they take you to a place where there's space. Not even a place. They let you have space. And it kind of fries your brain. And the thing about it is, my point of view is your mind is a dangerous thing. Waste it. Okay? You know, your being is what creates everything that's wonderful and beautiful and amazing. You know, and so you ask these questions and it fries your brain because it's bypassing your mind and accessing you, the being. You, the infinite being that knows way more than you can think.
I love it. Your mind is a
dangerous thing. Waste it.
Waste it.
Yes.
I don't know if there are ways can be protected, but I really think it should be mentioned. It should be quoted and then sent. Dr. Dain.
I like that.
So, and Dr. Dain, what about happiness?
Oh, happiness.
'Cause
What do you want to know?
actually, how you see? Because so many people are going through depression right now.
Oh,
So
I
many
know.
people are stressed out
I know.
because of so many reasons.
Yeah.
What is happiness and how to finally embrace it?
Here's the thing, I think one of the things that stops us so dynamically from the happiness that's possible is not knowing that we can change the situations that we're in right now. So we have this idea that, if you have, let's say you've got financial troubles and they're there and they've been there for months or years or your whole life, well, you don't think you can change it. When you can't change the situations of your life, what ends up happening is it's really tough to be happy if you don't think that what isn't working can't be changed. And so, or can be, if you don't know that it can be changed. And so what happens is, when you say, how do we actually get to happiness? That's why I give people these really simple tools like asking questions, because it starts to open up their awareness that they can change the way things show up and they can change the energy of what shows up. One of the things, so it starts to give them that little glimmer of possibility. Because if you're angry or something, or let's say you're sad and you say, who does this belong to? And you get less sad, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, if I can change that, what else can I change? And that's really the beauty of it. So it's really, for me, the happiness, what I realize is it's not very valuable to many people. It's so weird. And people would say, I'd like to be happy, but if you said, cool, will you give up your destructive relationships in order to do it? Oh no, I can't give those people up. Then do you really want to be happy? So what you find is there are a lot of people out there that don't know it's a choice, and that also don't value that as a choice, and also who have the point of view that I need to change all of this stuff out here before I can be happy. That's the killer. Because they believe they have to change all these situations out here before happiness can happen. And these things out here, there's always going to be something going on somewhere. I mean, I have all kinds of things going on in my life that would have made me so depressed 15 years ago. And it's multiplied by 1,000 because of the fact that Access is growing so much right now, that there's so many more interactions with people and so much more to deal with in the business. 15 years ago, it would have stressed me out so much I wouldn't have wanted to get out of bed. And I would have thought, until I can handle this, I can't be happy. I realized we've been going about it the exact wrong way. We've been going about it 180 degrees from the way we could. Instead, if you go, you know what, no matter what's going on, I'm going to be happy. What happens is your life starts to change before you to make that show up. So another thing that you can do is you can go, okay, so if I were being happy right now, what would I choose? And you just get it, once again, that's another one that fries your brain. You know what I mean? You kind of go, but it opens up the space, because when you ask a question, it's this beautiful thing that nobody is talking about. But when you ask a question, it's like doors of possibility open up, and they have like light and space behind them that you never saw before. What most of us are doing is we're headed in that direction, and we've been headed there, wherever that is, for so long that we've worn a rut, and we've got these walls to the left and right that we can't see over, we can't see through, we can't see between, we don't see any other choice except to go that direction. And when you ask a question, it's because that's what happens when you make a conclusion, is you head in that direction only. You can't see anything else. When you ask a question, it's like these doors open to the left and the right, and they have light and space and possibilities behind them that you never saw before. So if you ask a question like, if I were being happy now, what would I choose? And it's like, oh, okay, so right now, if we were being happy, what would we choose? Well, I am happy. It's like doing this interview, it's like, here we are, hi, And that's what happiness is, but nobody gets it. They think it's something they achieve once they finally have their entire life under control. And so what that creates then is so many people trying to control their lives. And if you're going to control your life, rather than let it show up for you and let the universe give to you, you have to make it small enough for you to control personally, which is why people's money decreases, why their relationships feel really contracted, why their body starts getting tight, because they're trying to control the world, thinking that they can't be happy until they control the world, when if they would give up control of the world, the universe could gift them more than they ever imagined possible.
Wow, that's beautiful. Then I wonder if you ever thought of writing poetry also, because actually the way you put it, it's like I used to read poetry, and when you read poetry, there's some type of beauty that goes directly toward your soul, not just the brain directly, but it goes directly toward your heart.
Yeah.
And the way you putting certain of your phrases, I think it's kind of bypassing, as you say, the brain, because not only you can understand it, but most importantly, you can feel it.
Yeah, that.
And that's very important, I think.
And thank you for that. Thank you. And I agree, it is. We've got to be able to feel these things. We've got to be able to, and even more than feel them, like get to sense that, and be that. Because that's what happens is, sort of most of our lives, people have been saying things to us, and they've been saying one thing, their mouth has been saying one thing, and yet what was coming out of here was something totally different. And so we've had this sort of disconnect and this confusion between our awareness of what actually should be possible and what people talked about. And part of the thing of when you ask these questions, you start again to sort of get the sense of what's actually true for you. So you're actually, I guess you'd say, congruent with your life. Where you feel like you're like, okay, here's what I would desire. Okay, cool. I'm here, I'm actually starting to create my life now. When you ask these questions, it starts to open that possibility.
Both of them. Right now, I bet you're probably a different person compared to yourself, let's say, 20, 25 years ago.
Yes.
Or just compared to the person you were. I mean, I don't even know if I have to say the person you were, or the state you were in, when you were going through the depression and everything related to it. Now, what advice would you give to that person 20 years back, 15 years back?
First thing I would say is don't quit. Never give up, never quit, and never let anything stop you. And there is a way to change it. This is actually changeable. This does not have to be the way you live anymore. The tools are available. And the other thing I want to say is there are so many people who are living in depression at this point because they've experienced abuse, or they've experienced abandonment, or they've been in the presence of other people being abused, and all of these things. And what I want to say is, don't buy for a minute that has destroyed you, that you are a victim, because it hasn't. If you are still here, still looking for something different, if you are not perpetrating that abuse on other people, if you've stopped that cycle, you have a level of courage far greater than you ever thought, than you've ever given yourself credit for. Please know that. Please do not let the fact that it occurred make you believe that it occurred because there was some wrongness in you. The classes that I facilitate, I have people from all walks of life, different countries, different cultures. I mean, when I go to Europe, we have like 8 different languages being translated in the room simultaneously. And those are always the most dynamic classes because we're all coming together with all of our differences being embraced rather than having to be cut off, and it creates something greater for everybody.
Can I ask you,
Oh, my friend.
because actually, I did interview a lot of people, and not all of them, of course not, but some people, I felt like they were responding, were here.
Yeah.
They were talking, but they were here.
Yeah.
And during this interview, I can feel that you truly here in your heart, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
But then you talk about being ourselves to change
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
How can we accomplish that? Is there a way you can explain us maybe the process or what's the main ideas
Yeah.
around it?
Well, it's interesting because we keep thinking we need to be somebody else in order to change the world. You know, for those of us that are even looking at changing the world, because there are a lot of people that probably would like it, but are going, yeah, that's for somebody else to do, you know? But it really is, what we don't realize is anything we're willing to be opens up the space for everybody else to be it, where before it may never have existed. So, for example, in the example I gave about the I'll ride with you thing that occurred in Australia, where the person didn't give in to fear and anger and separation. The person was afraid, and somebody said, "Look, I'll ride with you. I'll have your back." And what it did was it opened up the space for that to actually exist and be available for everybody who was willing to have part of it. So it's like when everybody else is doing judgment, if you choose no judgment and instead you choose kindness, because that's more true for you, all of a sudden everybody else that might want to choose it but didn't know that they could is finally given permission. So what you do when you be you, because I have sort of ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism all rolled into one. So, you know, I tend to go from here to here, and I apologize. I don't complete many sentences.
Talking about it, to tell you the truth, I've never heard of attention disorder before coming to the States.
Really?
I mean, in other countries, it seems natural to think of something and then you think of something else.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean,
Yes. No, I agree with you. We have this horrendous need to define everything as a disease and a syndrome and a wrongness. Once again, rather than, wow, what's great about that?
Because, I mean, you cannot be just talking about the same point for hours.
Exactly.
I mean, something is supposed to lead to something else.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it. And this thing, when you be that difference, when you are something different, as you give other people permission. So, for example, in this conversation, you know, it's like it's natural for us to go here and here and here. There are people here that don't know that, which is amazing to me. I'm like, how do you not get that? But they don't. And so, even if you can be that, all of a sudden you give them permission to have that as okay. And so, this thing about being you changing the world, you know, and that was the last book I wrote, of being you changing the world. This thing about it is everything you're willing to be gives permission for everybody else to be, for anybody else that exists on the planet. So when you choose kindness instead of judgment, what you do is you open up the space for that to exist. So that creates a space for somebody else to be able to have it too. When you do that, you change the world. I mean, if you could imagine, you know, if you've lived your life in judgment and you wake up tomorrow and have none, and all of a sudden you keep trying to make judgments, but they don't show up.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you go into the kitchen where your sweetie is sitting and they try to do their judgment thing, but you're in such a space of no judgment, they can't do judgment either, and there are no buttons to push, and you just have gratitude for each other now. And then imagine now they have this little bubble of no judgment, and so do you, and you don't know why you got it, but you just have. And now they go to work, and they're that way, and this bubble passes to all these other people. And you go to work and you be that way, and this bubble passes to all these other people, and everybody you affect is all of a sudden not able to do judgment anymore. Have you changed the world?
Yes, you did.
Absolutely. But that's how it is because my point of view is, we as the beings we naturally are, we don't judge. You know, it's like, have you ever seen a little kid that judges? No. They don't learn to judge until about 8 years old or so. That's when they start, when this reality gets, you know, sufficiently impactful. And so little kids don't judge. That's the way we are as beings too. We don't naturally judge. It's something that we learn. If we could get over that one thing, we change the face of the planet.
Yes, definitely. Actually, that when you explain that, I totally understand it. For example, a lot of we nowadays we have a hard time being natural,
Yeah.
being ourselves, because only we mostly follow customs. We have all this idea in our head. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do this. There's some type of rules all over the place.
Right.
But how can we override it after learning all those things? How can we let them go?
What you do is here's a really valuable tool, and that is what's true will always make you feel lighter. A lie will always make you feel heavier. So if something that you're doing, something you're thinking, something you're about to choose feels heavy, don't do it. Because what's happening is it's not actually true for you. If you actually start to find what's true for you, any of the customs, any of the points of view, any of the things that you picked up from family, culture, or anybody else that makes you feel light when you do it, then it's true for you too. Where we get into so much difficulty is when we do it just because it's part of our culture or part of our custom, but it makes us feel heavy. We're like, we have to do it because of our culture or whatever, but it's not really true for us. And so if you want to get out of that, you want to go, okay, so if it makes me feel light, it's true for me. If it makes me feel heavy, it's not. I'm going to just choose the things that make me feel light. Unless I have to do it because somebody else requires it of me, then I'm going to at least know that I'm choosing it for them. I'm not choosing it for me. You know, it's like here in Texas, there are lots of people that go to church on Sundays, which, you know, and so if you're in a family that goes to church on Sundays and it doesn't make you feel light, but you know you need to do it for your mom or your dad, just go, okay, cool. I'm doing this for them. I can do this for them, no problem. So you start to get this thing where it's not, I have to do it. It's, I'm choosing to do this to be kind to my parents. I'm choosing to do this to honor this person. So it starts to become for the most part of your life, you choose what makes you feel lighter. And for anything you have to do that's somehow required of you or an obligation, you recognize whether it makes you feel lighter or not. And if it doesn't, realize you're doing it for somebody else. And you start to come out of the necessity of letting culture or any of these sort of big imposing systems, you know, culture, religion, family. You start to come out of the place of them being 51% and you being 49%. And what you do is you elevate yourself to 50-50, where you're like, look, I will do this because I need to. It wouldn't necessarily be my choice, but it will make everything easier for everybody. Okay, fine, I'll do it.
Wow. And the key word there is recognition. To be conscious of what you're doing, who
Yes.
you are doing it for.
Yes.
Instead of just being carrying around without really knowing exactly why you're doing it.
Yeah. And choice. Because when you have that recognition, the other things it gives you is something that most of us don't even realize, which is choice. And we recognize that recognition that we are choosing. And once you recognize that you're choosing it, then you stop resenting it. Because when something is a necessity, you know, when it's a necessity that you do it, and then you feel like you come out of choice, you start resenting it. And you start sort of resisting it. And so when you go, okay, I'm choosing this, that recognition, exactly like you talked about, you start recognizing that you're choosing, all of a sudden that resentment goes away and that resistance goes away.
Okay, that's actually we're going slowly but surely toward the end of our interview. We have a lot of questions, but unfortunately the time is limited. We were wondering. Actually, I'm also, before even going to the next question, I'm really happy, not to say proud, of the fact that I'm in front of someone. I can feel it once again. It's not that I've heard or read about it. I can feel want to make a difference.
Thank you. And yes.
And look at that. There are a lot of people, a lot of people who also want to make a difference, but don't necessarily know where to start.
Yeah.
Do you have some ideas or few words for them?
So here's the thing: is we alluded to it before. It's like the greatest gift from my point of view that you can give the world is to, number one, step out of judgment. I know it sounds almost like insignificant or irrelevant. But what happens is when you're not judging, you undo every reason we have to create any separation and any limitation we have. So so number one, if you can recognize it, you getting out of judgment is one of the greatest gifts you can give the world. Because from my point of view, the greatest toxic waste on this planet is not plastic and all that other stuff, whatever. It's our judgment and our separation and our anger and our rage and our fury and our hatred and our unwillingness to come together as one and recognize that we all populate this planet together and that we all are part of living here and that what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And that we have the capacity to change what goes on, and the way we do it, number one, by getting out of judgment, but number two, by starting to embrace tools for change. And what I really mean is starting to embrace possibilities. Because what happens is we live in so much judgment, and we live in so much judgment of what's right, what's wrong, what's not possible, what can't be created, what can't be chosen, that we've sort of taken ourselves away from the sense that we have possibilities and we have other choices. And if you can start to kindle that childlike curiosity again for exploring the world to see what's possible, to see what choices are available, to see what possibilities are available, you start to basically allow yourself to start to live again, rather than stagnating, rather than dying. And so if you get out of judgment, if you start to embrace possibilities, and then if you start to use some really simple tools to start changing things, what happens is rather than being one of those people that walks around like a judgment machine, just like everybody else, who kind of is like a rock on legs, I've got this right, I've got this wrong, I've got this right, I've got this wrong, all of a sudden you become this walking sense of space. And the people that so desperately desire it but don't know it's possible become inspired to know that they can choose it too. And I think really the greatest gift we can be is the inspiration to everyone else to know that possibilities exist, to know that a world beyond judgment exists, and to know that a world of oneness and inclusion actually exists. There are lots of people who have been speaking about consciousness now over the last several years. But they don't have a definition of it. And so they're speaking about it. And so our definition of it in Access Consciousness is where everything exists and nothing is judged. And if we could truly embrace that in our world, every possibility begins to open up.
Consciousness is where everything exists, but nothing is judged.
Yeah.
Look at that. That will be our last question. We know that you're doing amazing things. But for people who probably watch this video, let's say 50, perhaps, so let's say 100, 200, maybe 300 years after us, what message would you give them? How would you want them to remember it?
Well, hopefully I'll still be here to talk to them, but because my target would actually be to create a sustainable living Earth for the next 10,000 years. And I believe we have the capacity to create it. But, like John Lennon said, I may be a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. And that really is my sense. So really what I would actually say is to the people of now, what if we truly could create a sustainable living Earth that could go on and did not have the danger of being consumed and being destroyed, and actually had the beauty of being able to live and thrive? And my other question would be to everybody, what's it going to take to create that, and are you interested? Are you in? Would you like to make this planet your home? Rather than believing that it's something just to consume and then discard. And yeah, that would be my question for us now. And if I could be remembered as as anything in 200 or 300 years, it would be somebody who invited people to know how great they are, and that they have the capacity to change and create change on our planet and actually make a difference. And my question is, what if you, truly being you, were the gift and the change and the possibility this world requires? And are you willing to choose to be it?
Dr. Dain, you're so inspiring me right now. So,
Thank you.
in other words, in my world, we understand the question is it possible to have a better world? And what can we do starting now to move toward that goal?
Is it possible? Absolutely. I mean, I've seen evidence of it showing up dynamically, even just in the last year more so than any time before that. And what does it take? I think pretty much everything that we've spoken about during this interview. Starting to function from the question rather than the conclusion and the judgment. What's true will always make you feel lighter, and the more you choose for lightness, the lighter your life will get, the lighter the lives of the people around you will get. And then they'll want to know what you're doing. The recognition that possibilities are within our grasp, we just haven't been taught to embrace them, and what would it take to embrace them. And also the starting to ask questions, because a question always empowers. What are the questions we can ask to open up these different doorways of possibility? Start every day with, who am I today and what grand and glorious adventures am I going to have? And then I say, universe, show me something beautiful today. And and my point of view is, and I ask this question probably hundreds of times a day, and it is, how does it get any better than this? And that really is my point of view. I'm expecting better all the time, and I always get it. It's because I know it's possible. I didn't 15 years ago. And so the fact that I do now is evidence that it can change. But like I said, there are thousands of people who are using these tools around the world, seeing the exact same changes in their lives that I got in mine. So I know they work. It wasn't just me. I've seen way too much evidence of that. So it really is about this thing of, with all of these aspects, as you start to embrace all of that and start to recognize there is lightness available, there is happiness available, if you start asking the question, this can actually happen, as your life starts changing, you get more gratitude, and you feel willing to be here more, and you don't feel like things are wrong anymore. And then all of a sudden you become this kind, gentle contribution in the world. And you'll know what your place is. Like, you'll know the place or space where you can make a difference, because it'll be the easiest thing you can do. And this is one of the last things I'll say, but I'd really like people to have this, and that is, the place you can make a contribution is going to be the easiest place for you to do so. We keep thinking, I need to go do the most difficult thing, the thing I really don't want to do, because that's where I can contribute the most. No, the place you can make the contribution is the place where it's easiest for you to do so. It might be giving somebody a hug today, and that changes the course of their whole world. It could be that simple. Rather than looking for the impossible task to do, look for the one that's right in front of you. That's the one that's not only easiest, but will let you know how easy it can be to change somebody's life and create a greater possibility for our planet.
Dr. Dain, thanks for being terrific.
Thank you.
We we really appreciate what you share with us. And if you have a last word for those who are watching us right now, that would be fantastic.
Well, here's the thing. Please know that you have far greater possibilities available than you probably ever imagined could exist. You have a capacity to create change, and there's a beauty that you are and a beauty in your world that will change everything for all of us if you choose to be it. Please, don't ever make you wrong again, because that's not serving anybody. You getting what's right about you, not from conclusion or judgment, but from the gratitude that you're no longer living in wrongness, changes everything for all of us. Please, what if you, truly being you, are the gift, the change, and the possibility this world requires?
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, DeGrace. What a beautiful manual. Thank you.
This one, you blew my mind like 5 times.
Wow, but